So Ramadan 2019 started this weekend, just passed, and will run for a month. And what we thought for this week's podcast, we'd have a chat with some of our Muslim members of staff about just what Ramadan is and what it means to them, to help raise our own understanding about this and have a chat. We've got Leslie Foe here, our diversity and inclusion lead, to talk about what the Trust Committee is doing to support our staff and inclusion topics more generally. So if I could start by just asking each of you to just introduce yourselves and say what you do in the Trust.
I'm Leslie Foe, I'm the Diversity and Inclusion Lead.
I'm Wahida Mohammed, HR Advisor.
I'm Amina Begum, I work as a recruitment administrator.
And I am Amna Sabani and I work in the communications team as a comms and engagement officer.
For somebody who knows absolutely nothing about Ramadan whatsoever, what is Ramadan and how does it fit into the Muslim faith?
Ramadan is the name of a month for some people who may not be aware. It's like the 9th month of the Islamic calendar. And the Islamic calendar follows like a lunar calendar as opposed to like the Gregorian one. So it's based on the moon sightings. So which is why like some people might be confused as to why Ramadan is not on a fixed date each year, because of the lunar cycle moving, I think, back by about 11 days approximately. So that's what the word Ramadan actually means, is the name of an actual month. And it lasts for 30 days, like you say, a period of 30 days, and during which time Muslims will abstain from food and drink. Not only that, it's also to sort of abstain from other sort of bad habits and things like that, sort of refrain from, doing bad things, saying bad things, seeing bad things, a number of things. It's like a spiritual detoxification as well. So food is a small part of it, but I think with us being human beings, it has, that's the most noticeable aspect of it. So that's my definition of what Ramadan would be.
And so in terms of abstinence and fasting for a particular period of the day, how does that work?
So it's normally from dawn till dusk, is
That's
it?
right,
Yeah, so normally around, I think it's 3 o'clock. My husband woke up last night, 3 o'clock in the morning. And you stop eating when, is it just before sunrise?
Yeah, so I think the final point which you can eat up until is sunrise.
Sunrise, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think now it's around, is it around 3:30?
Yeah, I think for us it's
in the morning.
Yeah, around 3:30.
Yeah, and just before that we do Fajr prayer. And then
so that
we don't eat
coincides with
anything,
sunrise as well.
Yeah.
Fajr prayer, so Fajr prayer is usually at sunrise, so you would stop eating up until that point.
Yeah.
And depending on which time of the year Ramadan falls at, sunrise can be after 7 a.m. and at other times like
in the winter
you're
months.
on
That was a
now,
long
so,
time
yeah.
ago, wasn't it? Right now it's really early.
So we're fasting for longer periods of time. I think last year was probably the longest for a long time. Some people think we have it bad, but I think certain parts of the world, I think in like Finland and places like that, they fast up to 20 hours or something like that.
So there's a lot of daylight. So you stop eating in the morning, and then you don't eat anything until the sun goes down.
Yeah, and we often get asked this question. Not even water.
It's nothing.
Yeah, not even water.
Nothing
So
can pass the lips.
Yeah,
no medication. No nothing.
Yeah.
Not even smoking.
Obviously, if you required a medication, you wouldn't be expected to fast. So people who are, like, say, elderly, the young children, pregnant women, breastfeeding women, menstruating women, they're all sort of exempt from fasting anyway. So it's.
So we might expect to see quite a few tired people who are observing the fast if they're getting up in the early hours of the morning to be able to
you get to points where you start to flag a little bit, but then it's not as hard as you would think. I don't know. I think once you've done it, and I think it's the sort of the spirit around Ramadan, that solidarity, millions of people
really
around the world are
exciting.
doing it.
The build-up's
and
really
it just
exciting.
seems easy. I mean, once you've gone past the first
you
few,
get used to it.
your body does adapt.
Your stomach
and get
shrinks
used to it.
and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I remember everyone in the office being really supportive. Like they'd all eat that. Maybe they wouldn't eat food that smelled quite strong. They might take it downstairs or try and hide treats. So I don't hear, because I'm notoriously known for like eating a lot in a day. So they made sure not to distract me. But then as I got used to it, I was like, you can eat what you want and fine now. Just carry on. Honestly, it's really nice of you to try.
It is really nice how you get that support of people.
Everyone is really.
Somebody who isn't familiar with Islam as a faith, explain a little bit about how the other pillars and how they fit in with.
We learned a song about that in school.
Did
Did
you
you
sing it?
Oh, I don't remember. I just remember there was like, there are 5 pillars of Islam, Allah explained in the Quran. Does anybody know that? But then I don't know any more than that. I just remember that, and then I know the pillars, so we'll do them together. So there's namaz.
Sing it.
No, say them.
First
namaz.
like the declaration
of our
the
faith.
oneness of, so Islam is a
What's the word
monotheistic
for that?
religion, so it's declaring that we all believe in one God. And,
Shahada.
Yeah, so that's also known as Shahada, so you get some people who may convert to the religion, so I think the first point in which they do that is by taking the Shahada, or the declaration of the oneness of God, and declaring that Muslims believe in all the prophets as the biblical prophets and the sort of prophets that are mentioned in the Torah that Judaism believes in as well. But the difference is that we believe that Prophet Muhammad is the final prophet, and whenever we say Prophet Muhammad's name, a lot of Muslims will say like peace be upon him afterwards, so you may hear that from time to time. So the first one is the declaration of faith. The second one is to pray, practice praying, so it's like also known as salah or namaz, some people call it, and that's prescribed at 5 points during the day. And I think we mentioned Fajr being the first one of the day, which starts at sunset, and the final one is nighttime prayer, so after the sunset. Sorry, the first one was sunrise, and the final one is after sunset. There's one at sunset, and there's another one at night time as well, which is known as the Isha prayers. And the third one is fasting. The third pillar of Islam is fasting, that you mentioned earlier.
Order. I know them, but I didn't know there was an order.
I think it might be just the way I learned it.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so the third one is fasting. I think some people use an Arabic term to describe it, Sawm, S-A-W-M as well, so it's interchangeable, or you might say it in your mother tongue, or say, we say Rosa in Bengali. What do you say?
Yeah, both. Yeah. Rosa, and then it's like a pronoun.
Yeah,
Rosa.
Yeah. And the fourth one, the first 3 are what we would class as obligatory ones, and the final 2 are only for those who are able to. So the final 2, the fourth one being going on a pilgrimage to Mecca in Saudi Arabia, where and we call that Hajj, the pilgrimage, the journey. And that's like a journey, and it consists of a certain set of rituals. And the final pillar is zakat, which we mentioned, which is literally means charity. So donating 2% of your wealth. But the final 2 wouldn't be compulsory on everybody, because not everybody would have the means to be able to do that, or the funds to be able to do that. So that's the first 3 are the main pillars. Yeah.
For Muslims living in this country, is it desirable for people to strive to have that pilgrimage once in their lifetime, or is it something they would strive to
I'm lucky enough to have been.
Really?
So yeah, we went like, when did we actually? 2 weeks after we got married. It's like it's a nice, it's a nice way to sort of start. Like we thought, and it was definitely it's quite spiritually quite awakening. I wouldn't say I was that practicing before that. I think that was a bit of a turning point for me. And just that sort of that sense of community you get from being out there. I think at the time that we were there was another 2 million people there at that same time. It was less than 2 weeks that we'd been out there for, only because that was the time, the certain time we could take off work. But I think the actual period of Hajj lasts for 7 days, but some people will go out there for 4 weeks and fill it with other sort of rituals during that time. And yeah, it's amazing just to see where, Muslims from all parts of every corner of the world looking so differently, but all there for a common purpose, and all sort of sharing, and all sort of like doing the same rituals, that sense of togetherness. And I think you get some of that coming back in Ramadan, that community spirit, that sense of togetherness, reaching out, and the charity is a big thing during Ramadan, isn't it, all the time? And so there's a lot of that during Ramadan, so everybody's just on a high to do, be the best person, be nice to everybody and things like that. And I think sometimes it can be like people assume that, oh gosh, it's Ramadan, I feel sorry for you kind of thing. But I think I don't know, maybe sometimes it can be a struggle for various reasons for some people. But the way I see it, and I think a lot of people do see it as well, it's actually a privilege, because it's such a blessed month that we believe it to be, where the the opportunity to maximise on all of this sort of reward that we can get is just, we think, wow, we need to sort of reap as much of that as you can, because for what is like little effort, you know, you can gain so much more from the belief. That's a sort of fundamental belief of it anyway. So
I think last year when I did it, it was just the sheer appreciation of what we have and what we take for granted all the time, just like little things like food and water and drink, and then that is what you're meant to do. You're meant to reflect on those who don't have as much, and you do appreciate
you
it.
do, don't you? Because I think when you are abstaining from food and drink, it makes you a bit more sort of like spiritually aware and conscious of other things around you, and you know.
You appreciate that first drop of water when you break your fast, or when you have that date, the sweetness that you get from it and that sugar rush, and you're just like, food. You just don't understand how much
after a while you don't want to eat anything, you just want to get down and go to sleep.
Your tummy shrinks that much, doesn't it?
So there's clearly a very individual and contemplative part of Ramadan, but it sounds like there's also quite a family or a social aspect to it.
Very big family and social. I mean, where we live, we've got quite a close-knit community, so when everyone's cooking in the evening, like 5 or 10 minutes before we're about to break our fast, we'll be all getting knocking on each other's doors, giving a plate of food to each other. So I'll get my mother-in-law, or we've got my husband's auntie next door, we've got some neighbours. So sometimes you have to cook that much because everyone just kind of gives food around to you. But on a normal day, you'd never do that. That's why Ramadan's so nice and special, that you do share a lot with everybody. And you want to try different foods, like you've fasted all day, no matter what anyone gives you, you're like, oh, thank you, I'll try that.
Food tends to taste
what have you made?
Nice.
And we share ideas. It's all on social media now as well. Big thing on social media about, like if you'd search Ramadan or iftar meal ideas. Iftar is the name of when we break our fast, isn't it? Iftari. We say iftari, or it can be iftar. So if you can search iftar on social media, you'll come out with so many cool like food and meal ideas.
By the time you break your fast, and then we also have like an evening prayer, which is known as the Tarawih prayers. So you might see a lot of people gathering at the mosque more often during Ramadan time than you would any other time of the year, because there's another additional prayer. It's not a compulsory one, but it's a recommended one, and so that can last up to an hour. So a lot of men will go
Sometimes
through that
longer than that, depending on how they read it.
Yeah, so if I'm reading that at home, it could take me about an hour, and then so then you get to bed quite late, and then you have to be up soon.
Some are shorter than the others, and again, it's like the units in specific prayers. For example, the morning one is short, but then after that you're awake again. So but then it's longer in the day, and then evening ones are shorter. Then it's a mismatch. But everything's the same. You pray the same. Pray towards Kaaba, which is Mecca in Saudi. And
There's loads of things that you can think of that are cultural things, like khattams, and these are like I don't even know how to describe them in English, like when you get together and you do prayers and things at home. Khattam, but that's not even something that as I've grown up they say that's not even in the Quran. That's more a cultural thing that you do, and
we do that more so when people have died and passed away, or remembering them. So we just either
like a gathering and you pray together.
And we finish
and they told you don't have to do that.
People listening to this podcast and listening to the audio of it might hear there's a little bit of an echo in the back here, and that's actually because we're actually sitting in a room that's almost finished, but not quite yet. Which we're creating at the Trust. Leslie, would you like to say a little bit about the sanctuary that we're sitting in?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. We've created a new spirituality and meditation room, really, a health and wellbeing room for anybody using the headquarters building. So we called it the Sanctuary, and it's a space that people can book to use the room in slots of 10 minutes to half an hour to come and have some quiet time, either to pray or just to think in the room in a quiet environment. So we've been able to commandeer a room that used to store IT equipment. We've cleaned it out, cleared it out, and had it freshly painted. And we've got a small project about to start to look at furnishing it just with a few simple items, some storage and shelving and so on, to make the room suitable for its use. But we've had a phenomenal response to the room already. And it's really good to see that people are making use of the room, particularly now that Ramadan has started.
If you had just one simple message or one simple thing to say to somebody who would say, okay, right, I'm not Muslim, I'm not, I don't even have any faith whatsoever, but I'd like to show some solidarity or support for my colleagues who are. What would you say?
Be yourself, but be a bit more mindful about the fact that somebody could be tired and someone might not. So just being a bit more conscious of the fact that this person is fasting. So any sort of demands on them and things like that. So just they might be tired. They might be a bit more sort of ratty, and just hungry.
Or just at my home, some of my colleagues were like, I'm just about to have my dinner, you okay with me eating here? Even that, just saying that just made me feel special, just that they cared to ask. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. Well, if I was having a day, I was like, I'll go downstairs actually, when you have yours. You don't have to move, I'll go downstairs.
And now we have this room, we can just come in here and just relax, I guess.
Honestly, I used to fall asleep downstairs sometimes, so having this room is really good.
Yeah, definitely.
Appreciate it.
I do as well, because going back about 12 years ago when I used to practice praying at a place that I worked, I was praying inside what was pretty much a cleaning store cupboard, because that was the only space that was available, and I just felt like I couldn't express it to anybody that I was having these breaks and going for, because there was probably nobody else doing it at the time. But I think the more you talk about these things and people become aware, I feel kind of really honoured that it's come to a point where I can share it with my colleagues and they know exactly where I'm going and what I'm doing, and the fact that there is a designated room for this is just such an honour. I'd like to thank Combined Health for sort of putting this facility in place, and I think it's really good.
What's it like when you're not on, when you break your fast? How fantastic is it to break your fast?
Oh, it's amazing.
It is amazing, yeah. I think
you like to make special things as well. We always make a mango milkshake. It's like a special in our house.
Oh yeah, the mango.
It's full of sugar and it's so sweet and creamy.
Yeah, I think it's just who you're sharing it with as well. The food. I think it's that sort of who you're sharing your meals with, who you're breaking the bread with. And I think sometimes it's not always about how much you have to eat. It's about how you're doing it, and the fact that you've all sort of got to that end goal together. And you can.
We sometimes do iftar parties as well. We'll call people over on certain days, maybe on the weekend when you've got more energy to cope with it the next day. So you normally don't really go around to each other's houses, but when it's Ramadan, you make a conscious effort to call others over to break fast with you. So if you've got other family members or friends, you'll say, why don't you break fast at our house tonight? And then we'll either cook together, or it's my treat today, then you can do it tomorrow. So there is that social aspect of it. It does bring people together as well.
Definitely, it is all about sort of sharing and giving and sort of betterment of yourself, really, just to become a better person. You sort of strive to sort of continue some of those things that you've acquired during Ramadan. So I think for some people, not eating is hard. For others, like my husband, it could be not swearing. So it's just different things. So I think because you're conscious of the fact that you have to sort of be on good behaviour or try to sort of abstain from other things and not just food. Some things are more challenging than others.
And music, you're not meant to really watch things like that. So I found that quite hard.
So things that would be sort of tempt you into, towards what we would say, sort of the steer you down the wrong path, if you like. So it can be quite challenging in that respect for some people as well. So it's not just the physical aspects of it. We have two major festivals in Islam, don't we? Eid al-Fitr, which is the Eid that's at the end of Ramadan, and there will be another Eid around approximately 2 months after Eid al-Fitr, which commemorates the end of the Hajj period. So that is the time where people will go on the pilgrimage to Mecca. So some people might think, well, hang on, she's having some time off for Eid. Wasn't that just 2 months ago? Yeah, but there are two. One is known as Eid al-Fitr and one is known as Eid al-Adha, but people will just call it Eid. Yeah. So yeah, that's something for people to be mindful of.
Right. Yeah. Well, look, thank you very much. Thanks for an absolutely fascinating discussion. Absolutely fascinating. And Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Mubarak to you. Thank you for having us.
We hope you've enjoyed listening to this podcast from Combined Healthcare. If you'd like to find more, you can go to us on SoundCloud/NHS Combinations, or you can search for us and subscribe for automatic downloads in iTunes. Thanks very much for listening.